Nothing much changes over the centuries or even over thousands of years as far as what people really want to be conscious of. In other words, if there's possible bad news on the horizon, people want to be asleep like these two kittens here. They just want to, they just want to cuddle up in their little fur blanket here and not worry about things. That's how most people are, even at home. They want to be entertained. They want to stick their nose in their smartphone and watch videos or whatever they're doing. People don't want to hear the tidings of possible bad news. Um, on a lot of these silver channels or whatever, I don't really have a silver channel per se. I just do some videos on silver. But one of the things I have to present, though, is that, the one common theme is about, economic crisis or economic problems whereby one of your safeties is going to be physical metals. Um, that could be true, but the one thing I really, really like the most about silver in particular is not so much the tradable value, which could go up exponentially if people all became aware of its real medicinal antimicrobial value. It's that silver is the only metal, and I guess copper can be put in this category, but not as much, but it's a safe antimicrobial. You can use it to make colloidal silver water, which I'm doing right now, or ionic colloidal silver water, which is actually really exactly what you're doing. It's not pure colloidal, but it's a very safe antimicrobial that can even help assist the body to get rid of microbes that you can't overcome just with your immune system. That's really the number one power in it. I know a lot of the silver channels really want to put out about it's a hedge against economic collapse or whatever, but there's a lot of argument to be made that other things could be more of a hedge against economic collapse. Like, in other words, if you bought tons, literally tons of 30-year storage life freeze-dried food, I'll guarantee you that stuff will be worth a hell of a lot more than silver, because somebody would buy, like, in other words, what do you really need? Number one, food, right? Food and water, then shelter, clothing, heat, and things like that. Um, if you're like, you got to think like a kitten, basically. What's the number one thing cat looks for? Food and water, water and food, right? Then they look for shelter, like they find a nice little cubbyhole they can hang out in. And then if you don't have your electronics, you don't have your TV, you don't have your cell phone, um, even if you don't have lighting for at nighttime, well, as long as you're comfy, warm, cozy, got food, got water, eh, that's that's why actually, as a hedge against collapse, one of the best things you could do is buy a lot of freeze-dried food. But silver, one of the things I really think where silver can really be strong, though, in an emergency situation, again, is harping back to the antimicrobial, because one of the problems you could possibly have during an economic collapse, per se, is that doctors won't be available. Sanitation will be not as well, maybe because, water supplies will be, more restricted somehow, or you might have to gather rainwater to survive. Well, that's where silver comes into play, because even back in the 1800s, and actually prior to this, going all the way back to the ancient Greeks used to put silver dollars, and the Romans used to put it in urns to preserve water. And the pioneer days in the 1800s, in the 1700s, they used to throw a silver dollar in a barrel, a water barrel, and to preserve the water from getting bacteria and toxins, or microbes building up in it. They used to put that in the wells too. So that really comes down to really the value of silver. And if people figure this out, God, that's a couple ounces. You don't even need 10 ounces will do you for a long time as far as antimicrobial properties where you can survive. I know people tend to buy tons of it, but even 10 ounces would do the job. But one of the things I'm seeing I'm going to say this, that back in 1990s, in the late 90s, when the tech boom was going strong, because I've been around a while now, I was born in, I'm in my mid 60s, right? So in the 1990s, I remember when the tech boom was going on. I never thought that boom was going to crash. I thought it was going to like maybe readjust a little bit. I heard all about the writing, but I thought, well, the internet is so brand new and all this technology is going so strong. You know, everybody was jumping aboard on, sort of like the five ladies and girls on a motorcycle here. Everybody was jumping on board with the tech boom. I thought it was getting a little overheated. Yeah, definitely it seemed to be because it was going parabolic, but I never thought it was going to readjust the way it did. Lesson learned, it did. Then, during the 2000s, I know you could talk about why this all happened and stuff, but, and I know about the subprime, mortgages and all that. Then you had the real estate markets really taking off, right? Well, that was something, yeah, I knew it was getting ahead of itself. Everybody knew it was getting ahead of itself, but who ever expected that the value, well, let's say not the value, but the market value, not maybe the real value, the market value of a house after, say, 2007 into 2008, 2009 would be below the cost to build one. It was like far below the cost to build one. I've seen projects that were maybe going on the market for 25% of the direct construction cost to build. It's like ludicrous to think it would go down that far. But does that readjust itself? It readjusts itself and kickstarts after the glut of inventory is now off the market. And why things come so much on the market was because people couldn't pay the mortgages. They got, they sold them. The ones who sold the product grabbed the money and they ran, and the ones that were left holding the mortgages, a lot of them couldn't hold on to it, and then the banks came back in and all these houses came up on the market, and so you had a glut of inventory on the market, and that didn't clear itself up for some years. What I see coming up today is I don't really believe. I put out a couple of videos about the eaglecom 2025 predictions, and I do not think they are going to go anywhere near as extreme as Deagle. But then again, I was completely wrong about the tech market, tech boom adjusting itself so radically, and also what happened with the real estate market adjusting itself so radically some years later in 2007, 2008. Now, here it is. So you figure that was about 9 years from 1999 to 2008. 9 years from 2008 would be 2018. I think we're actually overdue. And this stuff with Trump with his MAGA stuff, it's like, obviously, yeah, I did vote for Trump, but I am definitely not on board with everything with him because he's definitely a compromised guy, and I'm not buying into all this stuff how the economy is just going to keep going because we elect a president and it's going to keep going into the stratosphere with all this debt that's rapidly approaching $23 trillion. Allegedly, according to some experts, when the debt gets up to 24 trillion, that's the point of no return. You're never going to be able to fix it. That's what some people say that are experts supposedly in this. I read this some years ago, but I was trying to look for some more responsible people because that could predict the situation as far as that's not saying when the crash will come, but that's the point of no return. We're absolutely right on the edge of the point of no return. And does that mean that's when the economy is going to totally crash? I don't know. But according to Deagle.com, Deagel, not L-E at the end, E-L, Deagle with a D, spelt like beagle but not L-E at the end, E-L. If you look at their 2025 predictions, they predict the United States to have about 99 million people in 2025, down from 323 million I think we have today, due to mainly from exodus because the government is going to totally collapse, not be able to meet its debt obligations, and payments are going to stop to so many millions of people in the United States that it's going to cause them to just run out of the country or something, and there's going to be a major collapse affecting the major cities where main population centers are, which if you look at a map of 50-50 population divided up in the United States, you can see there's massive population density in the metro areas. And, in some ways, I do not, a lot of ways, I do not believe Deagle's predictions, but then I could be just as wrong, not believing them just as much as I was wrong about the crash that happened with the real estate that some people were warning about, and the crash that happened with the tech bubble in the late 90s that people were warning about. So I don't want this to happen. I'm not a doom and gloomer. It's good to have healthy readjustments every once in a while, but it's not something that is easy to undergo through. It's like you're the dog here and you're trying to kickstart this little bike again, and you can't reach the pedals because your legs are too short. But as far as Trump goes, I can tell you that I'm not sure if he's going to get reelected. I got to throw this in here because if the economy, the markets take a extreme downturn prior to 2020, November 2020, and say gas prices go up and home heating fuel goes up, and maybe there's some other event that happens that out of the blue that happens or whatever, I don't know. But just the economy alone, if the economy goes bad, his main thing was MAGA. Every hat. I don't own one of those hats. I don't want one of those hats because if you want to make things go good, leave us alone. Basically, like his hat should have never said "Make America Great." It should have said "Government, leave the people alone." Or something like that. I don't know, something like that. In other words, people make their own wealth. The government doesn't do that. And, for a president to say, I know he could deregulate and all that type of stuff, but the thing is, if the economy goes bad before the 2020 election, the media is going to clobber him with this MAGA stuff. And people will be, conservatives going to be trying to explain it, well, look what happened to the economy. And that's where he can lose. But then again, I don't know if that's going to happen. And the other thing is, there's other people that got uses for him. He's got, he's in with the elitists pretty much. There's elitists that are behind him. He's not some renegade billionaire that just came to the forefront. He's got bigger backers than he is. He's a minnow. He's a minnow renegade billionaire. And they can destroy him too, just as easily. They got dirt on every politician out there. I don't care if they look like they're conservative and they're this and that. I don't want to mention too much because, they don't like you mentioning that type of stuff. I can give you specifics, but there is dirt on every politician out there. And this is why I am a little fed up with people that get behind politicians. I mean, I have a golden rule: don't trust politicians, preachers, judges, lawyers, cops, in modern day generals and officers in the military. They're not like the old ones. And that's really how I roll. It's like, these are people that are just selling you something so they can be in charge. Now, I don't like people that try to grab being in charge of something because they're the kind that just delegate, and, they don't do that much themselves. That's usually what a politician is. They're all screwed up. Actually, what this country is supposed to be is, limited government, as little government as possible, just enough to protect your individual rights. So if you're these two ladies or girls going out there to the beach and you want to ride your motorcycle on the beach, they don't have a rule that says no motorcycles, okay? I mean, whatever. California, man. California in the 1960s was awesome. Look what happened. The beach sign today is like, no. So, I mean, we gotta, you don't need to elect some new clown out there that just is going to promise you the world. And this is why we have a problem with everything in the economy today, because people are expecting some great leader to come along to fix the economy, make America great. I voted for Trump, but I was not on board with his stuff, and I'm going to wind up voting for him again. But the thing is, I'm not really on board with this guy. Not really. Not really. I mean, never really was. I mean, if you look back at my videos, I was kind of flip-flopping back and forth on him, whether he was good or not. He does have a patriotic streak. On the opposite side, he's really owned. He's compromised. There's no doubt about it. I don't want to get into specifics because I probably can't say that on YouTube, but he is compromised just like everybody else. And you can drink the Kool-Aid all you want and believe whatever you want to believe, but nothing's going to change that much until we, the people, take back our power. And that brings me back to the original point with the silver. The silver, even if it does not take, I think it's going to wind up taking off in value a great deal. But I never was an advocate of buying. These people do, they buy all this silver and they think the world's going to end and everybody's going to want silver and they're going to be filthy rich sitting on the top. Well, there might be a little tiny point of time when silver does in a microsecond in time where silver super spikes and it will make a lot of money. But then again, there's a lot of other investments out there that do the same thing if you can find them. But the deal is that precious metals, especially silver, is a high-risk investment. It's always been known as a high-risk investment, and it's got possible high reward. What you do with high risk is you don't put all your eggs in one basket. But the thing is, I want to draw back your attention to silver. Physical silver is very unique. This is why you should have some. I mean, you can have the Sprott fund, the electronic fund, or whatever. Fine, that's fine. I'm not really saying you have to have all physical silver. Now, if you have the electronic fund, where that could really screw up is if you have, what do you call it? The grid goes down and we have no electricity. But then if that happens, it will be restored at one point in time and you will get your money back. But the other thing is, if the grid goes down, even if you had a mountain of silver coins, well, that's not going to do you too much good either. You would really want to have is food and water and other necessities. But like I said again, the ace with silver is that it has antimicrobial properties. Very, very, very strong antimicrobial properties. It can keep your water from spoiling, or not your water from gaining bacteria and microbes in it. It can keep other liquids from spoiling as much. You can also use it to make colloidal silver, onyx silver to put on bandages. Say you had a cut where you don't want the cut to get infected. They sell silver impregnated bandages for that reason right now. It's not some, it's amazing that this has been known for thousands of years, literally, about the antimicrobial properties of silver, and they're just starting to actually commercialize some of this stuff. It's not that long ago. It's amazing. But the problem is with the antimicrobial properties of silver is that other products that are out in the market that are far more profitable will be knocked out of the arena of the marketplace by something that's very cheap. But let me say it again, that this is why you need to keep some silver. You don't need to have a lot. I mean, you're talking, if you had 10 ounces, what is it going to run you? Like less than $200? It's not that much money. I mean, your cell phone probably costs way more than that. You got enough there to, treat thousands of gallons of water and and destroy the microbes in it. And if you're a kitty cat, you need to have nice, clean, microbe-free water. And when you drink the water, which I even found on my kitty cats too, I give them the colloidal silver water often into your kitty bowl, is that they, it helps them knock out the microbes within their body. Now, on the flip side to that, it does help knock out microbes in the body. But I've seen a lot of people use the word where it can cure anything. Well, it can knock out any microbe in a petri dish. That's true. But to try to knock out every microbe that's bad in your body, that's a whole nother story. But then again, it can help. It can help. And it's been known to help. They've used it back in the elite back in Europe used it during the bubonic plague. They used to give the infants a silver spoon to suck on. That's why the people that could afford it had silverware, and they knew that the infant sucking on the silver spoon would help ward off the plague. And it's not something that's false information, because I know YouTube is getting a little strict on that. And it's not that it's false information, it's just that some people exaggerate the information. I'm not exaggerating it at all, it's so proven, but it's also a threat to other antibiotics that are out there. This is really why you need to buy this stuff, because it's not so much that, I've seen some of these ludicrous people think that, if they had a mountain of silver and the economy crashed, everybody's going to run to them and give them all their assets just because they want a couple silver coins. I'm like, are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me, man. That's ridiculous. And, it could be go to super high value for a very, very, very short period of time. But the ride up to that point is going to be so erratic, and the crash is going to be so fast on the price, from the pinnacle of the price of silver in the future, that it's going to be unpredictable. That's why it is a very high risk investment. But there is no risk in keeping it for antimicrobial properties. So anyway, just keep the practical side of things in focus. Don't think about get rich schemes and all this other garbage, because I know some people have, well, you know what, I'm not a silver pumper because I do not have any vested interest in bullion at all, or any bullion dealer. Yeah, I used to buy from Gainesville Coins in Tampa, or near Tampa. It's actually in, God, I forgot the name of the city. It's not far from Tampa. It's Gainesville Coins in Florida. Mainly because they're a local, but do whatever you want. They're pretty good, though. They're one of the better ones out there. I'll tell you about them, but I got no connection to them. But some people ask me where's a good place. They're a good place, but there's a few other good ones. But the thing is, when I do think, though, that based on my past expectations, that, because I'm not a doom and gloomer. When people are telling me that there's going to be a crash in the tech sector back in the 90s, I really didn't believe it was going to be that bad. I didn't believe that the real estate market was going to be that bad of a crash in 2007, 2008. I figured it was going to crash, but not like it did. And, Deagle.com is predicting a crash, like horrendous crash. And they could be off in their year, though. Maybe it's going to be 2030, for crying out loud. But then again, I don't know. I don't know. Well, if Deagle.com is correct, it's going to be interesting to see who's the next president, because if I took a hip shot guess right now, I think Donald Trump is a one-term president. Not that, I know he's not all what he says he is. It's like a lot of Madison Avenue hype, but I'd rather have him win again, because the alternatives out there are so much worse. But if he wins or loses, if he wins, he's going to inherit the downturn in the economy. If he loses, the next person's going to inherit the downturn in the economy and blame it on him. What a mess, What a mess. But to me, the politics are here and they're there. But I know they're a main focus on YouTube. A lot of people want to hear some of this. I know somebody's going to say, this is going to be about silver. Well, silver, you can't really separate it from the general economy, and you can't separate the presidential election and who's in office from the general economy either. Sorry, that's how it is. And we have been on such a roll for so long, a high, that I don't think it's going to continue. The stock market has been going up exponentially. I know the people, it's kind of funny, the people that hate Trump, which, again, I'm not really, it's like the other ones are so bad, it's why I pick them, that's really what it is. But the people that really hate Trump, they'll tell you, I lost so much money in the economy, in the markets when Trump got in office. You're kidding me. The stock markets have been going through the roof since he's been up here in office, Not that don't think it's going to continue. No way in hell. No way in hell. But that's how polarized people are today with this stuff. It's amazing. You know, I think they're going to change though. I think they're going to change. So anyway, we got a old girl here on a cycle called Sinner. Yeah, my kind of girl. Anyway, but the deal is that we need to really get ready for a severe adjustment, and if you're dependent upon the government a lot, well, I don't know how that's going to work out. I personally think that the government is going to still meet its debt obligations per se, but the problem is, like, in other words, if you get, I don't know, $200 a month for food assistance, that $200 is not going to be buying the same amount of food. In other words, I think we're going to have rampant inflation in fuel, energy, and food prices, because when people are focused in on this silver, the silver crowd is so focused in on the silver. When silver goes up, you got oil goes up, gold goes up, and usually all the commodities go up together. Not exactly timed in perfect, lockstep linked order, but in general. And actually, the markets, there's an inverse relationship between the price of gold and the general equities markets, unless you're talking about specifically the mining stocks for mining precious metals. That specific area of the equities would go up a lot if gold went up. But in general, the general equities when they're way down, gold is way up because of the fear index. People run to gold for safety. When gold goes up, silver tends to follow, and also if oil goes up, and when usually oil goes up during the conflict in the Middle East, that's when it really goes up. That's when silver takes off like crazy. But then, not only as that happens, you got, everything goes up. Lead, cadmium, aluminum, nickel, whatever, and palladium, platinum probably, and also, I don't know if I mentioned aluminum, zinc, and also fuel goes up. And since food is such an energy-intensive enterprise, food production is very, very energy-intensive, food prices will go way up. And that is why, if somebody gets so much food assistance, you're not going to get as much food. The dollars might be still coming from the government, but it'll be worth that much less, especially for the specific items you are trying to buy. And usually when you have a problem like this, it's in areas that hurt the poor the most. In other words, fuel and food. You have to have those. You have to have home heating oil. You have to have gasoline, transportation for wherever you drive to, essential, and you have to have food. For the wealthy, those are minor, trivial expenses. If they go up a little bit, so if they're spending 1% of their net disposable income on home heating oil, fuel, and food, well, they're spending 2%. If you're poor, that might be like 40%, and maybe you'll have to pay 80% to go to that, and then you don't have enough money for your mortgage or your rent. So that's how that works. And in that case, well, yeah, I guess if you did have a mountain of silver, maybe that would help. But then again, you could say the same thing with a lot of different things, because it's a matter of you want to spread your bets out. You do not want to go all into silver, man. I was hammered on this so bad, and for saying this way back when, and you're just whatever. Yeah, well, I'm glad I toned it down a little bit back then. I was kind of going along with the frenzy on the silver stuff way back then, but I knew in the back of my mind this is getting a little ridiculous. But I didn't want it. As it was, I was being a little cautious on it, and people were hammering me for it. They don't want to hear it. So I tend to try to, give the audience a little bit of what they want, but then again, I try not to do too much of that. But the bottom line is you really got to spread your bets, and even if you had these supposed precious metals that are worth all this money, if there's a problem in the banking system, you're not going to be able to trade them in. And number two, the government will restrict and tax everything you trade in by extreme amounts because they will not go broke. Like, say, for instance, you get a ludicrous thing out there that says silver went up to $1,000 an ounce. Do you think that the government wouldn't tax 90% of that at the time that you went and traded into a silver broker? Yeah, sure would. I guess you could trade it illegally, but then again, go walk around with a few ounces of silver worth a few $1,000 in your freaking pocket and try to go trade it in. You talk about the wild, wild west for barter. Whoa. People aren't thinking, man. You don't want this situation to happen, but, you want to make some contingency plans. And I do think, just from me being too optimistic during the tech boom, and that it wouldn't crash that bad, and during the real estate boom where I thought it wasn't going to crash that bad, I'm very I do not buy into eaglecom's prediction for 2025 at all. I think it's way ludicrous. I think it's like true in a general sense, but the specific numbers they're giving about our GDP going down to a tiny fraction in that of what it was from 2019 by 2025, in a population going from like 323 million to 99 million by 2025, I don't buy into that at all. But then again, I don't know, man. I don't want to think that, but then again, if that happens, I don't know what's going to happen with YouTube. Man, there could be no YouTube either, God, tell you the truth, there ain't going to be. Well, we'll see. But then again, like I said, some of these crashes, and nobody believed the markets would crash that bad in 1929, or actually 1932, was when they really had the big crash. The first one was 29. The really big one that followed was 1932. Nobody believed that. Nobody believed we would get involved in a world war bigger than World War I. Because, everybody was wise to what was happening, In August of 1941, 83% of the population of the United States did not want to get involved in a war in Europe. You know that? 83%. Then we had Pearl Harbor. And I don't want to comment about that. I know about Senator Guy Gillette's book, None Dare Call It Treason or Infamy or whatever the heck it is. I knew about that in 1972 or 71. Before he actually published the book, I knew about that information. I'm wise to a lot of things, but I can't tell you about them here on the internet. So, but just behoove you to stay prepared, and don't worry about it too much, though. Be like these kittens, just chill out. Just chill out. But do not ignore it completely either. That's something you want to really, see the risk assessment. Keep a blank eye out for it, but do not focus in on it in fear of what's going to happen too much. It's almost like, say for instance, you're riding a motorcycle down a road and you see an object in the road and you say, oh my God, I could crash into that object. Well, you do not stare at the object, because if you stare at the object, you stare at the danger, you're going to run right into it. That's just a normal thing. What you do is you note it out of your peripheral vision and you pick another path to go around it. And you should apply this exact same strategy the way things are going right today. Realize there's a danger coming up, but don't focus in on that danger. But then again, don't do anything at all. But you want to obliquely register the danger and then, make your contingency plans as needed. Then you should be okay. If you react to the situation the right way, you should be fine. So, I'll just leave you with that thought. Over and out, okay?